Okay, we're live. It's been a busy day. Sorry we're a little late. Welcome to the Cloud Native Coffee Hour. I am your host, Dan Makita, and with me today is Dan McCracken, like always.
And without us is Sam Delamarter. Oh, he's in the chat.
Okay. So, let's start the conversation. Here we go. The conversation about tools. About tools. So I've been reading a lot lately. I don't know why. You know, I go through these I don't know, just different. I just get into like looking at the news, and then other times I'm just not into it. So the first one, and I already talked to you about this one, is a tool called Goldilocks.
Oh yeah.
Let me put a link in the chat here. Goldilocks. So, Goldilocks. I have been faced at, our previous employer, first of all, before we set out on our own here, as well as clients that we're currently working with. They have Kubernetes, they have containers, but the way they migrate to this new platform is they just lift and shift. You know, they basically take their Java apps, they shove them into containers, and they put them in Kubernetes. And Java is a beast, especially when it comes to starting up. And you can run into issues with like the readiness probe and health checks. If you set your CPU and memory too low in your deployment, it will make Java take minutes to start. And then your readiness probe fails, kills the pod, and then the pod restarts, never to start because it can't start fast enough, right? So then you up the CPU and memory request and limits, so that way Java starts in like 30 seconds, and you're good and happy. But now you have CPU and memory requests and limits set to the super high number that's only required for Java to start. It's not required for the app to actually run. And this is a problem. And everywhere I go, I see this. In comes the VPA, the vertical pod autoscaler. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the HPA, the horizontal pod autoscaler, which is like the typical, hey, I need to spin up a new pod dynamically. The vertical pod autoscaler will dynamically adjust your requests and limits, which is very cool. Goldilocks is an application that watches. It's an operator that watches your pods, and I haven't dug too deep, so I don't know exactly how it works. But it watches your pods and it figures out what the best running settings are, CPU and memory, for that pod. And then it will adjust the VPA for you. So that way your pod, like in the situation of Java, like I just described, you can set it super high to deploy, and then after a bit, it will adjust it down for you. So now the scheduler, the Kubernetes scheduler, has more space available to it to assign new deployments. Yeah, burstable resources. Great way to describe it. So what do you think of that, McCracken?
You know, we were talking about this the other day, and it kind of blew my brain a little bit, because when we boil it down with Kubernetes pod requests and limits, or deployments requests and limits, those live in the deployment. So here you have to break my brain in order for me to get this. The requests and limits that the kubelet sees, that the control plane will then, the scheduler will use to determine what's where, I believe. Now, we're on the same page so far, right? There's requests and limits for memory and CPU in a deployment that tells kubelet and the control plane and scheduler how much that app's going to need to run, right?
Yep.
Okay. In comes vertical pod autoscaler as the next construct, right?
Correct.
The vertical pod autoscaler, does it do anything to the requests and limits on those deployments? Is that what its job is?
I don't know.
Okay.
This is the part where I said I came across these tools. I think they have a lot of potential, but I wanted to talk about them. This is our I mean, I use this stream as a chance to learn. So, I mean, why don't we take a look at the VPA and see what that does?
Understood. And then let's definitely do that. And then if we lay down the hypothesis, then presumably vertical pod autoscaler handles those modifications somehow, or like if your app has a vertical pod autoscaler, then those aren't defined in the deployment. Maybe they're not defined in the deployment anymore. Maybe they're only defined in the VPA.
That's my assumption.
Okay.
Is that you don't assign it any requests or limits.
Okay.
My assumption is that maybe there's an annotation or something for the VPA.
Okay.
Or something. I don't know. I think we have to go look. I've never used it before.
And the reason that's and that's generally been the deal breaker. You know, like back when I know you and Sam really looked at this a few years ago. Because anytime you go in and modify the deployment, your pod restarts anyway. So it's not like you can change stuff on the fly. Like Kubernetes is going to adjust all those things, the very thing that we want to change. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I think I'm satisfied to start looking. So let's see. Actually, let me go back here. Vertical pod autoscaler, part of Kubernetes. Autoscaler, vertical pod autoscaler. Frees the user from necessity setting up-to-date resource limits. See, this is where they're wrong already. Most people don't do this at all. That's a suggestion, and they're starting right out with, well, you should do it. It's a necessity. Yeah, you probably should. Nobody does this. I do it. Up-to-date resource limits and requests for containers in their pods. When configured, it will set the requests automatically. When configured, it will set the requests automatically based on usage. Thus allow proper scheduling onto nodes so that appropriate resource amount is available for each pod. It will also maintain ratios between limits and requests that were specified. Okay, that's cool. That's nice, because I hated coming up with, well, what's the limit and what's the request? Yeah, just give it a ratio and call it a day. That would be good. The right ratio, but whatever. Scale down pods, scale up pods. I want to see a demo of this.
I know, right?
It's configured with a CRD called VPA. It allows to specify which pods should be vertically auto-scaled, as well as if how the resource recommendations are applied to enable it. Please follow the installation. Okay, cool. Still not in 1. But we're in 0.9 plus, Kubernetes 1.16 plus. What are we? Oh, maybe there. What version are we on here? Is there a releases? .10. And they have a chart. That's good. Kind of. Where's the chart? To install VPA, please download source code of VPA. Run the following. Is it just me, or do you? I hate these. Can't there just be a Helm chart? What's the difference? VR says. What is the difference? What is the difference with this and Rancher Autoscale? That would require me knowing Rancher autoscale. Do you have anything on that, Makina?
No, but I'm gonna do a quick Google search because my guess. Rancher autoscale might be scaling nodes, but I'm literally just guessing. Checking.
Okay.
I found it. It's the cluster autoscaler.
Cool.
So the cluster autoscaler is a tool to automatically adjust the size of the cluster. Okay. Yep. So this, so the Rancher autoscaler is going to dynamically add new nodes to your cluster, so a new worker. Whereas, yes, yep, nodes. Whereas this is literally it's basically just adjusting the CPU and memory on a deployment. So it's not even creating a new pod. That would be the horizontal pod autoscaler. This is adjusting the CPU and memory, which I'm assuming you joined a little bit late. My example was Java. Java needs a ton of memory and CPU when it starts up, but once it's started, it doesn't need it anymore. But if you set it too low during startup, it will take several minutes to start a Java app, and then the health checks fail, and then it kills the pod, and the pod has to restart again. And but then if you set it high, it starts fast and everything works, but now you're stuck with having a huge, CPU and memories set, and now your scheduler has less to work with when it's assigning other deployments. So this vertical pod autoscaler is the bee's knees, as they say.
It's game
Sorry,
changing.
I got really excited.
It's game changing. Yeah. Here's where I have a massive dose of skepticism on this. It just feels like, and by the way, I love this stuff. I think it's fantastic, but this works great if you are so far down the trail map and so comfortable with how your apps run that, well, this is the next. It's like trying to attain 5 nines. Well, it's like, this is the next thing to gain that next bit of efficiency. I think so, because
hold on. We just got a new follower. I just want to say welcome to Apex. Thank you for the follow. We appreciate it. Okay, go ahead, McCracken.
Well, I was just gonna rant, but I mean, I guess, we talk about the horizontal, or you talk about cluster scaling, right? Sorry, I have this. The more automation you bake on top of everything, and like if you have all the auto scalers going at all the time, I'm a little suspicious that you can have that working really well. It just seems like you have to have a couple of firm things established, and then maybe you can get some goodness out of one of those. Scaling upon scaling just kind of...
Let me play devil's advocate.
Scares the hell out of me. Go ahead.
Let me play devil's advocate. Because I think I agree with you. You have a point. If you can do things really, really well, right? If you know your craft, I like to talk about the Japanese and katana forging. The way they dedicated themselves to their craft was amazing. But, science later on found out that you don't actually have to you don't have to fold the steel that many times. Folding it 2 or 3 times is going to give you the exact same results as folding it like 12 times. Regardless, I'm sorry, I went aside. He's like, you think? The vertical pod autoscaler. There's so many companies. All the companies we've worked with, Dan, none of them take the time to understand how to figure out what the ideal running conditions are for their application.
Yeah.
None of them. And even for me, I know how to do it, but it's hard, especially if you don't know the app very well. So you have to have an intimate understanding of the app to be able to write tests, load tests, basically. So you have to understand the API, you have to understand the databases behind the scenes, and you have to be able to write queries to exercise the app, and then you have to run lots of load tests. And on top of that, you actually also have to know what your average load is in
Yeah.
order to execute those load tests effectively. And then you have to document the average running conditions of those.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
And most companies don't understand that. Vertical pod autoscaler comes in, and now it says, hey, I'm going to do all of that for you. Now, I'm not going to do it scientifically. I'm basically just going to watch what your app does and then use that data.
That's scientific.
It gets you like 80% of the way there. Now, I agree with you that, it'd probably be better to actually understand it and do it correctly. But for those that can't, this kind of does it for you.
No, and, we're not devil's advocate. I don't think we're there. This isn't an argument necessarily. I think we're just laying it out. But,
right.
Because everything you just said is, that's what floods my mind when we're like, okay, let's add the vertical pod autoscaler. It's like, and Scotty Capybara put in here, he's like, yeah, I mean, maybe you could just switch your app to GraalVM or something, and just, there's 1,000 ways to squeeze efficiency out of your setup. Like, there's just so many levers to pull, that makes it, well, that's a topic in and of itself. Turns out whatever you know happens to be the thing you think is most important. Hey, I know Java, and I know GraalVM. This isn't a criticism. Or, I know that there's a pathway there. That must be the best way to move forward. And then, that person goes and moves forward. And then you have maybe me or you, and we're like, well, I don't know what the app's doing necessarily. I don't spend a lot of time in there. I see this though. This could solve all my problems. Or not all my problems. We wouldn't say that. Somebody might jump to a conclusion. Well, this will solve a lot of problems. And by the way, I think this actually does, because tuning the app, that has to happen. And you might as well use something like this to get yourself close. At any rate, you could just ignore the app side. My point is, ignore the app side and just try to implement a scaler here, or the node scaler. So like, we're in this Kubernetes infrastructure work center. That could solve it. I could just keep scaling. It's all good, right? I got VMs. Those are cheap. Those are free, right? They're just virtual.
Well, something you were saying. Yeah, GraalVM is cool. Something that went through my head when you said that, though, is take any large enterprise, any large enterprise. They have 120, 150 microservices, all written in Java. And they have, their CI/CD pipeline set up. They have all of the overhead. They have shared Maven files, all this stuff. And it's really hard. It is really hard to convince an entire IT organization of 200 plus people to switch how they're building their apps. GraalVM, maybe, but still, you're trying to convince an entire organization to, okay, hey, you'll have to compile your apps with GraalVM. And GraalVM also has limitations in terms of its dependencies that you can use. Let alone somebody saying, hey, rewrite everything in Go or rewrite everything in Python.
Who would do that?
I'm a solutioner for the large enterprise. That's my sweet spot. So if they come to me and say, hey, we really want to go to Kubernetes for all of its benefits. We have all these apps. We want to put them in Kubernetes. I mean, I'm not going to tell them to rewrite everything they've done. I'm going to find a way to make it work. And I feel like this is a tool in the tool belt to make it happen.
Yeah, but you would agree that, if there's, obvious bloat, obvious cruft, I'm not saying you need to change application architecture, but if there's some obvious stuff, and I think you were talking about some of the ways you might go about a project for doing that analysis earlier, like, seems like you got to do that a little bit in order for this to make a little bit of sense. Like, there's just so much gain to be had sometimes. And I think it just depends what maturity level, where are you in the maturity level of your app, your microservice and application architecture? Where are you in your maturity level of, your clusters and how you're managing Kubernetes? Kind of depends, right?
So Goldilocks is the vertical pod autoscaler is a dependency. So you have to have that installed first, but then you can install Goldilocks, and it extends the functionality by, I think, collecting the data and automatically setting it for you.
Okay. I'm blind. How's this look? I love. Oh my god.
Goldilocks is a utility that can help you identify a starting point for resource requests and limits. How can this help with my resource settings? By using the Kubernetes vertical pod autoscaler, in recommendation mode, we can see a suggestion for resource requests on each of our apps. This tool creates a VPA for each workload in a namespace and then queries them for information. So maybe it's just a dashboard, so it utilizes the VPAs to generate a human readable dashboard.
Here we go. How does it generate recommendations? Doesn't do any recommending of resource requests and limits by itself. It utilizes the VPA. It uses the recommender. That's really cool.
Sam says, we've definitely worked on some pretty bloated Java apps. I know it can be a lot better if you have the ability to make those decisions. Jeez. Can you imagine installing this at some of the clients we work with and seeing the data it produces? That would be so interesting.
I know, and I'd love to have a baseline too. Maybe we could set up a baseline in the lab. Something I trust.
Is the Harvester server coming anytime soon?
The big iron? No. I got to get this big iron off my bed. We got to get this rigged.
That's true. When are we doing that?
We could just use that. I don't know. We'll talk about that later, off stream. That we'll just build it and sell it for a profit.
All right. We have spent a lot of time on this one. Let's move on. Another one that I would like you to look at. If you go back to the Fairwinds GitHub.
Okay.
Yeah, go to their GitHub. Yeah, right there. Click that. Polaris. Another cool little tool I came across. This one, I believe, scans your cluster and tells you basically what does not have any requester limits set on it. So, I mean, simple. Still kind of useful, though. Saves you a little time.
Well, and it'll do validation for you. So, if you get it all set up right, it'll just plug into it'll act as an admission controller and just say, I'm not going to install that. Sorry. Or, it'll just not install your Helm chart. You hate to see it.
I like that, actually. I like that a lot.
Yeah, this is really... You love it when there's a dashboard, some automation in your cluster, and you can toy around with it. These guys, these people, Fairwinds, I get a lot of emails from them. They seem to know what they're doing. I like it.
I actually, believe it or not, haven't heard of them before. I know when I showed you these the other day, and you're like, "Oh, Fairwinds," and I'm like, "Yeah, Fairwinds, those guys."
Our competitors. I like to think of them as friends.
But yeah, I think they're tools. I mean, I guess Goldilocks, as well as this one, they don't really do anything super complicated. Goldilocks literally just grabs data from the VPA.
Makes it
you know,
useful.
it's nothing really fancy, nothing black box or anything. But then it just makes it useful. Really, really cool. All right, going back to my list here. What else? Okay, so here's some that I have not dug into at all. That one was the one I dug into because it has direct usability for me. Some people might have heard of these. So we talked about SNCC before, but how about KubeLinter? I'll copy and paste it.
Is it Fairwinds?
I don't know. No, it's not. There's the link. Oops. I just copy. Oh, that's the next one. Here we go. KubeLinter. It's Kube-Scan again. What is going on? Oh. Ignore me. KubeLinter. Wonderful. What is it? Call it SNCC one more time. So KubeLinter analyzes Kubernetes YAML files and Helm charts and checks them against various best practices with a focus on production readiness and security. KubeLinter runs sensible default checks designed to give you useful information about your Kubernetes YAML files.
I'm already a fan. Never used it.
So, where does it run?
I want to see what their checks are. Could probably run it anywhere. Let's see.
It runs locally. Okay. So it's a local development tool. Got it.
And you could probably run it in your CI.
Oh, look at that KubeLinter with GitHub Actions. I'd love to see it.
Let's see. I really want to see what some of its rules are, honestly. Oh, hey. Could use make, guys.
Hell yeah.
Anybody else can come on and do the make part. It just tilts me. I've never had a good experience. Okay, checks. Oh, baby. Okay, that's pretty good. That's not actually too bad. Let me just do a...
Why so many dangling? I hate that word. Dangle. Dangle.
Indicates when network policies do not have any associated deployments. Yeah, so it's basically cruft. It's just going to find stuff that isn't doing anything. That's awesome. A dangling HPA. Yeah, okay. Oh, brutal. You're going to get yelled at if you have cluster admin role. That's my favorite one. This is really good. This, Sam can attest to, so can you. In the CKS training or preparation that I did, I talk a lot about this. Or you learn a lot about how you can get at secrets a lot of ways in Kubernetes, come to find out. And it's not just do they have access to secret, like there's a bunch of ways.
Yeah.
So this is awesome. Okay. Yeah, I think list being a key. Cool.
Yeah. Again, I just came across some tools. That's all this is. A little tool showcase.
These are the most useful. Yeah, Anything low friction like this, where it's like, oh, look at that. It's just such a public service. No, I could look at this. I could look at this forever. Oh, fine. Look, yes. Sorry.
Kube-Hunter.
1 second. I want to get the opinion of everyone on the stream who's used Docker or containers. Latest tag indicates when a deployment-like object is running a container with an invalid container image. Wait a minute. So all right. Somebody tell me. This is indicating that it's going to get mad. It's indicating that it's not a good practice to have latest block images that are using latest. Is this the interpretation of the chat? Because I get differing opinions. I'm sorry to park on this one, Makita. We're gonna get to that next one because I've heard of the next one too. But since we're here, do you use latest or do you not?
I think it.
I don't know what you're doing. Something like that.
I think it actually depends on your viewpoints. Now, I would say in most cases, you shouldn't use latest. I'd say it's a security risk to use latest. But if you're only referencing images that are internal to your organization, and you've set up a process that utilizes latest as a way to roll out security patches and things like that for everybody else to depend on. I personally think that is an acceptable use of the latest tag. I don't think you should ever use latest in a deployment, though, in Kubernetes.
Okay. So you would agree with the check being enabled by default?
I would. For this particular tool and its purpose, I would not say, hey, deploy latest as your pod. Because now, if your pod ever restarts, it's going to fetch a new image.
We're on the same page. Your change control, your change management system, I guess I hold that in pretty high regard.
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. I'm seeing acknowledgement from the chat, which is good. Also, I heard that lots of people just like to listen to us. Did you ever hear that feedback? Most people don't watch.
Huh.
Yeah.
We do soothing voices.
It's like people are in their car and we're like, I don't know, we're like Joe Rogan and stuff.
You know, we should we should take on more of a tone, like
there I was. In this Ramadi.
I was thinking more of like a yoga thing.
Damn
were you with us when we had we play video games, right? And sometimes we are in Discord with random strangers. And sometimes when they join, I am super impressed with their leadership skills. We had somebody join. Their name was Dungeon Envy, and their voice it was a female, and her voice was like a yoga instructor. We're doing like a savage level content. She's like, "All right, everybody, you're gonna move in, and okay, now move out." And you're just like, "Yeah, I like this. This is
like
nice."
rating yoga.
It was like rating yoga, and my stress levels went super low. I was like, "Can I be your friend, Dungeon Envy?"
I've met some people like that, and they are super good friends to have. All right, what was this next thing?
Kube-Hunter.
Oh yeah.
This one's an aquasec.
Perfect.
Kube-Hunter. Now I've never looked at it, so I actually don't know what it is.
Oh.
I've used a few aqua tools, but I don't know what this one is. That hunts for security issues. Ooh, good name.
Sounds like a virus.
Right? It's designed to increase awareness and visibility of the security controls in your Kubernetes cluster. How does it work? Let's go.
There's no way people are going to see this. From outside the cluster, Kube-Hunter probes a domain or address range for Kubernetes-related ports and tests any configuration issues that leave your cluster exposed to attackers. This is awesome.
Yeah. I think we can use this.
This is awesome. Oh my gosh. I dare say we should do it on our lab cluster on stream, but I don't know. I'll tell you, the first time I had that feeling of, I know we really need to. The first time Mr. VR messaged me, I like woke, it was like morning. It was morning here. I don't know where it was. It was in the afternoon there, and I got this text message from a guy, Mr. VR, and he's like, "Hey, I think you exposed your cluster." And I'm like, "Oh, you just wake." I woke up and I was like, "Ah, what? No." So we really need to run this. It would be good. I know. Good times.
Breaks out into a hot sweat first thing in the morning.
It was not a great day, and I appreciated it a lot. It doesn't feel good to make mistakes, but they happen. Luckily, we had already taken care of the mistake, but you hate to stare it down. What test does it run? This is gonna be a little over my head probably. Passive tests or hunters, active and passive. Cool.
I have quite a few tools still to go over, so I think.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
This is cool.
This is like a whole week's of stuff. Dashboard. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is my favorite one. KubeLinter. Yeah. Kube-hunter. Kube-hunter. That's where we're at.
Kube-hunter, let's go. All right, next one is actually already in the chat. It's up a bit higher if you're able to scroll.
Starboard?
Kube-Scan.
Okay.
By Octarine Sec.
Okay.
Kube-Scan.
I love this. I'm already a fan. Free Kubernetes risk assessment tool. Okay.
Kube-Scan gives a risk score from 0, no risk, to 10, high risk, for each workload. So this one you actually install into the cluster.
Okay.
Whereas Kube-Hunter, it looked like you ran it from outside the cluster.
Right. This is cool. Screenshots, please. Please be good. No. Screenshot's broken.
Scroll up.
One demerit.
Maybe images. Go to images. No. All right.
VMware owns it. GG. It was nice knowing it. How old is this? This is super old, bro. And by bro, I mean Makita.
This is super old. 2 years. Wow. It hasn't been touched since then. Yikes.
And VMware owns it. Yay.
All right.
Deleted.
Scratching it off the list.
Kube-Hunter.
Next one.
All right.
Kube-Hunter, let's go. Okay, next one is
active, quote unquote
checkov.
Active development.
Checkov.io.
Okay, I already like the Star Trek references. I don't like the lack of Star Trek on this page.
I don't know what this is.
Policy is code.
Help me.
Yeah. Policy is code. I know, this is a little abstract, so.
So moving on.
Well, policy is code. What kind of policy? Maybe an OPA competitor, potentially. That's kind of what came to my mind too. Ooh. This is what is this animated GIF? It's so fast. I don't even know what they're doing. All right. I'm sure it's good. Maybe.
It integrates with CI/CD.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a little abstract. It's probably, I mean, it is good stuff.
I don't know. I don't know the use cases without, like, I guess, diving deeper.
Yeah, we're not going to get into that.
Okay.
No, I like this though.
Okay, so kind of moving on to another list of things here. Most of these we know, and I think everybody knows, so we probably won't dig into all of them, but obviously Prometheus, Grafana. Here's one I don't know. NetData.cloud. I don't know what this is.
Okay.
Architected for speed, automated for easy monitoring.
I love troubleshooting.
So, is this like a Splunk type thing?
That's where my head went.
It looks like a Splunk competitor that I've never heard of.
I mean, if this is a company, this isn't free, is it?
It was on my list of things to check out.
Okay.
I've read a lot of articles, and I've been writing down things from the articles, and
Okay. Open source.
Whether
Data agent. Right. Yeah, I mean, anybody doing good analytics on what's going on in big brain Kubernetes clusters, those people should be cashing in right now. This feels like this is cool. There's an open source community. Contribute on GitHub. Let's take a look at the GitHub. It's usually more high fidelity infrastructure monitoring and troubleshooting. Okay. Open source free. Pre-configured, opinionated, smooth brain. Perfect.
and always real time.
All right. It's kind of cool.
I actually really love pre-configured and opinionated.
When they know more than you do, which is most of the time, like when that's their business, you know, I don't hate it.
I just, again, I liked enabling a business to do what its business is. You know what I mean? Like if you're selling insurance, sell insurance. If you're doing healthcare, keep doing healthcare. You know, those types or finance, you know, focus on what your business is. And if it's super opinionated and comes pre-configured, great. Yeah, Grafana, you can pull down tons of different dashboards. Most of them are broken. And it's just, it would be so cool if there's just like this is how you monitor Kubernetes. Boom. Done. No knowledge or pre-configuration needed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such an interesting subject because I think a lot of times too, we can criticize the tools. I'm not saying you're doing this, but I've definitely done it in the past. You look at the tool and you're like, oh, this tool sucks. And it's really because you don't have enough context to know what data you're looking at yet. And so whenever I approach any dashboard or metrics or monitoring tool, I usually start with, I'm going to need to put a lot of energy into looking at this before I understand anything in it. I know most of the words, let's say, hopefully I know the words in it, but it just takes a lot of energy to do data analysis. That's my day-to-day approach on it. But
I think my point too was, I'm not trying to like bash any of the existing stuff because Prometheus and Grafana are amazing. I think where I'm coming from is that Kubernetes is boring. That was a slogan from one of the KubeCons a couple of years ago. Kubernetes is boring, and what they meant by that is that it's been solved. Kubernetes is Kubernetes, and it's a standard implementation, more or less. And so, at the very least, when it comes to a monitoring logging solution, there really should just be a really easy out-of-the-box dashboard that you can get for free. And if that can be a part of Grafana, all the better. So I guess that's what I mean by pre-configured.
Sure.
And because right now, at least, I think the last time I played around with Grafana was just like 6 months ago or something. But at that time, I still didn't see an official pre-configured dashboard that monitors the boring Kubernetes things.
They will
And I could
accept
be
that
wrong.
pull request. Yeah.
All right, moving on. This one I'm excited about.
KubeCost?
KubeCost.
Okay. Okay.
Monitor and reduce Kubernetes spend. KubeCost provides real-time cost visibility and insights for teams using Kubernetes, helping you continuously reduce your cloud costs. So I think if I remember the article I read about this one, this is the cost that your cluster consumes.
Okay.
Now, how it gets the actual money side of it, I'm not sure. I'm sure you have to kind of like maybe plug in how much it costs you to actually, host the nodes and stuff. But what it looks at is like how much memory and CPU your deployments are consuming to kind of calculate how much
Nice.
money does it cost you to run your workloads, basically.
Nice.
Oh, really? That's cool. VR just said if it's tied into the major cloud providers, that the cost of those cloud providers is in their API, which is awesome. I was not aware of that.
Right, so this guy just kind of plugs into that and says, well, this is what it would cost to run on those places. It does the audit real quick. Is that what you're saying?
I guess.
It'd be kind of cool to see, because you could do, we could run that against our, hardware and find out real quick, like how much that hardware is actually worth. Well, we know what we spent on it, we know what its cost was, but how much are we making on it, basically? Very interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. When you do a cost analysis for a client, being able to actually come up with real metrics around where that number is coming from, beyond just, hey, you're paying this much to go, at the very least, you can look at a cluster. You can see how much you're paying for it in Google Cloud or whatever. And then you can look at the amount of memory and CPU that cluster's using. And then you can say like, hey, this is how much you're paying. You could probably shrink your cluster. I mean, that's the easiest approach probably. But something like this actually, boils down the workloads that you have deployed. And actually probably, I can't really see the pictures, but probably breaks down each deployment and tells you how much each deployment is costing you. Would be my guess. Yeah, it does.
I think this has it by. Oh, it does. I thought I saw one by namespace. But I see they're talking about chargeback here. Chargeback would be kind of a situation where, let's say, say you're a big company and you have multiple departments all deploying their applications to public cloud. You have that broken up by namespace or something, hopefully. And this tool will let you kind of slice and dice, run a query, or bake that into your cost model to say, hey, these namespaces or these apps with labels, use these and kind of group them as or give me the total chargeback cost for those apps so that I can send it back to Department B, and then they'll do, you know, internal transfers and stuff like that. So fun times with chargeback, but seeing that kind of is a great use case that I can think of.
So
Pretty
anyways. Yeah, so that was the list of things that I had written down. Bolero was on there, but you know, I think we've talked about that before.
Okay.
I skipped over some that were like Amazon AWS specific. I wrote down Amazon X-Ray and AWS Cloud Map for monitoring observability tools. There was another AWS one called Carpenter that does the auto node scaling for a cluster. But yeah, I think we touched on all the ones that I really wanted to look at. What'd you think?
I liked it. Kube-Hunter, very good.
Kube-Hunter, that's your.
I know.
That's your favorite.
That is my favorite. You know, if I was to do any one of these, it's that one. Yeah, I'm glad we did this because it's tough to want to spend time looking into all these things, man. There's just so much.
There is. Your camera froze, just so you know.
Yeah, I know. My whole Brave browser froze, so I hope it shows me doing the something pog jam.
You look like you just look angry.
Am I whistling? Ah, dang it! On my screen, I'm like whistling or something. Anyway.
Well, it's perfect timing then, because hey, you're back.
Yay!
Cool. So I think, yeah, my two big takeaways that I'm probably gonna try to work into my workflow. Actually, KubeLinter, I'm probably gonna actually work into my workflow. And Kube-Hunter and kubecost, I actually really want to try both of those. There's two more things actually I really want to look at. Probably when Sam's around. I really want to look at Starboard from Aqua.
Yeah.
And the other one, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a Kubernetes dashboard. That's a web UI dashboard.
Okay.
So when Sam's back, I want to check that out too.
That might not be a bad topic. The Kubernetes dashboard, the community Kubernetes dashboard too. That might be worth looking back into and maybe doing a demonstrate, or maybe trying to install it, seeing what that's up to, because we haven't worked with that in a minute. So that might be another good idea.
I'd be all for it. Cool. Well, I am winding down. I am good. Post list of tools that was talked about in Discord. Yeah, I can do that.
Nikita will fix it all in post.
I'll throw it together. I will have it in there this evening.
Cool.
Cool. So thank you for joining us today. It was a little last minute, but hope you enjoyed the stream. Off the cuff. And yep, VR is our spokesperson. Please join us in the DevsOperative Discord that VR just posted. I normally have it on the screen, but we're using a different setup today, and I forgot to add it. Yeah, we do this every Wednesday when we can, and we'll love it when you join us. Anything you want to say, McCracken?
Nope. My brain is full of all these tools, and I'm like stressed out. But I like Kube-Hunter.
I can see you're kind of in a daze. Cool. All
well,
right.
That's what learning feels like. No, thank you very much. Thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.